November the 10th, 2014, YouTuber Kenny Veach set off on his last hike. He'd informed some close relatives that he was going on a short overnight trip into the desert near Area 51, but it was one from which he would never return. Yet Kenny was hardly an inexperienced desert hiker or spelunker, and had ventured into the arid, dry deserts of Nevada many times before. He claimed to have hiked solo across mountaintops that many people would have never dared to attempt, and had lost count of the number of caves that he had explored. But there was one particular cave that had terrified the veteran explorer. It was during an additional visit to that particular subterranean cavern that he disappeared without a trace. As I've stated, Kenny was no amateur. He had been hiking and caving for 20-plus years, having encountered all sorts of life-threatening dangers on his travels, from sheer cliffs and animal traps to rattlesnakes and freezing conditions. Kenny had faced some of the most terrifying threats the world of nature has to offer. But he always made it back. He always got himself out of whatever jam he was in. He might have returned beat up and exhausted from his trips, but only once was he ever forced to call for help, in an incident in which he'd hurt his leg on a mountaintop and was forced to call in a helicopter rescue. So it is well documented that he had an excellent safety record and was in no way reckless or foolish. One day, while Kenny was out exploring the desert near Nellis Air Force Base, he came across a cave system with an entrance shaped like a perfect capital M. Kenny entered every cave he came across, and naturally, he was even more curious about this one given its unusual shape. But on his approach, he found a strange feeling taking over his body, a bizarre vibrating feeling that shook him to his bones. The closer he got to the cave's entrance, the more intense this feeling became, until it was so strong that he became intensely terrified, fleeing the area without even attempting to explore it. He posted a YouTube video under the username SnakeBiteMcGee, which was titled Son of an Area 51 Technician. This video detailing the events, telling his viewers that it was by far the strangest experience that he had ever had whilst out hiking in the desert, and so began one of Nevada's most peculiar and puzzling urban legends. Obviously, the video sparked a huge amount of interest from his subscribers. A multitude of users enthusiastically encouraged Kenny to return to the cave to properly explore it, and to properly document its appearance and location as to provide proper evidence of his strange and terrifying discovery. Naturally, he obliged them. On this second trip to the M-shaped cave, Kenny armed himself with a 9mm pistol, along with a video camera so that he might show his subscribers exactly what he'd seen. However, much to the disappointment and skepticism of the YouTube community, Kenny couldn't seem to be able to retrace his steps to the cave's location. Some called him out as having lied about what he'd seen, calling him a fraud and a fabricator. However, in the video itself, Kenny is visibly shaken that he can't seem to locate what he'd easily stumbled across during his previous visit. His experience with hiking and navigation meant that he'd have no trouble finding it again if he wished to do so, and we can understand why people might think that that made him a liar. But Kenny insisted that it was like his mind was playing tricks on him, and rebuked any who accused him of having made the story up. To save face, Kenny vowed to go back out into the desert a third time in order to prove he was not simply lying about the whole thing. This seemed to satisfy the doubters and reassure his regular viewers, all except one. No, do not go back there. If you find that cave entrance, do not go in, you won't get out, read one user's comments on the video posted. Other commenters asked them exactly what they meant by the plea, imploring them to share what knowledge they had of the cave that would cause them to leave such a stark warning, and the user never replied. Even in spite of the warning, Kenny was undeterred. He was determined to prove that he was not a liar, determined to prove that his hiking and navigating skills weren't slipping. At some point, he posted a comment telling his viewers that he was making a third trip to the Mojave, one of the hottest and driest regions on the planet, in order to finally relocate the cave and to explore it. He told viewers that although he was not taking his video camera for mobility's sake, he would be making a detailed record of the cave's location so that he and his subscribers could easily find the M cave for themselves for the sake of making their own judgments. Viewers awaited his return with bated breath, thrilled at the prospect of more information on a place that could well be connected with nearby Area 51, or at least have some kind of extraterrestrial or paranormal significance. Since Kenny would be making an overnight trip, they knew that they would have to wait until the following day for a new post from their favorite desert explorer. But the day came and nothing was posted. Then another day went by and still nothing was posted on Kenny's YouTube channel regarding the M Cave. Eventually, concerned viewers alerted local authorities that Kenny might well be in some danger, and after the mandatory 72-hour period, Kenny Veach was officially listed as a missing person, and the search for him began. On the 22nd of November 2014, search and rescue volunteers found Kenny's cell phone lying in the dirt at the entrance to an abandoned mine shaft. This was the same mine shaft featured during the video entitled M Cave Hike, Kenny's second trip into the desert, in which he filmed himself being unable to locate the cave entrance, much to his own anxious confusion. The search and rescue volunteers superficially explored the bottom of the shaft but could not find Kenny or his body. Yet, there was no other trail leading from the cave that would indicate that Kenny had headed off in any other direction. To the volunteers, it seemed like he had just straight up disappeared, plucked from the face of the earth by some unknown, unseen force. Additional rescue teams were called in from surrounding areas, and on the advice of Kenny's girlfriend and sometime hiking partner, they found his truck in its usual parking spot. But again, Kenny was nowhere to be found, and any trails they found went cold near the abandoned mine shaft. Kenny's sudden disappearance fueled all manner of conspiracy theories which speculated on his fate. Some insisted that Kenny had fallen down the mine shaft, even in spite of the search and rescue team's insistence that there was no corpses to be found down there. Others asserted that Kenny had found a hidden entrance to Area 51, or had come across some kind of military secret that led to him being detained by the U.S. military. While more outlandish theories abounded that the M Cave was some kind of extraterrestrial structure, and that Kenny had either been abducted or killed by visitors from other worlds. It is most likely that Kenny simply fell victim to the elements, went a bridge too far in his search for the truth, and had died of dehydration or heart stroke. But if that was the case, there was very little doubt that his body would not be found and recovered by the search and rescue teams, who at one point used a helicopter to scour the area for any signs of him. But a post from Kenny's girlfriend in the months that followed his disappearance might shed a little more light on what became of him. She mentioned that her boyfriend had been battling with depression for many years by that point, and that he may well have gone out into the desert one last time to end his own life. At least, that's the only logical explanation she could think of. Yet as much as we can rely on her for an insight into his personality, it ties into our previous point that surely someone somewhere would have found his body. We might never learn the truth of Kenny Veach's fate, but if we can learn anything from his disappearance, it's that it would be extremely unwise to go looking for that M-shaped cave. Internet streaming services such as Twitch has had an astronomical rise over the past few years. Millions upon millions of viewers turn into a variety of live streams every day, which span a variety of subjects from video games and cooking to creepy story readings and practical jokers. And you might be forgiven for thinking that such things are relatively new, but as far back as 2008, there have been people live streaming the intimate details of their lives via webcams, and perhaps the creepiest and most intriguing of these live streams were focused around a woman known to many only as Chip-chan. On the anarchic internet forum 4chan is a webcam thread where users explore various open-source webcams and share the most interesting finds with their fellow users. Sometime during 2008, one user shared a webcam broadcast showing a woman lying in an extremely uncomfortable-looking position, and those that viewed it quickly speculated that she was dead, pondering over the idea of alerting the authorities to the apparent fact that a corpse was being live-streamed to views all over the world. But to the surprise of those watching, the woman apparently got up and had in fact been sleeping in this unusually uncomfortable position on her apartment floor for a very long period of time. This was one of the first things viewers noticed about this mysterious Asian woman, that she slept in abnormal ways, often either on the floor without a mattress or even sitting up in her computer chair, and did so at seemingly random times of the day, often for periods of more than 12 hours at a time. Those who frequented the 4chan webcam thread quickly became fascinated with her. One user even did enough research on her to find a WordPress blog that they discovered was actually written by the woman shown on the webcam, having matched up certain details of her life, such as the appearance of her apartment, her sleeping habits, and other such details. This in turn led them to several other blogs, apparently written by the same woman, which detailed some incredibly dark thoughts she seemed to harbor. The woman claimed that she had been implanted with a kind of top-secret mind control weapon, which had been inserted into her body in the cartilage just 3 centimeters away from her left ankle bone. She also claimed that another microchip that had been implanted under her left eyebrow. This is apparently what led 4chan users to christen her with the name she is synonymous with today, ChipChan. Soon, even more disturbing details began to emerge. ChipChan asserted that she was being held hostage by a corrupt police officer, known only by the codename of P. In an attempt to prove this, she used various streaming sites to livestream her apartment on a daily basis, and has now been doing so for more than a decade. She does this by using a multitude of webcams set up throughout her apartment, which is filled with signs written in Korean. These are webcams which she is very obviously aware of, as she has been known to move them around or adjust them from time to time. The streams are accompanied by an audio clip where she in her own voice informs the viewer about P, the mind control weapon, and her situation, and many of the handwritten signs also inform the viewer of her particularly terrifying and unique situation. So we can conclude that she set these up herself, and they are unlikely to be a method by which the mysterious P is watching ChipChan exclusively. She claimed that this mysterious P figure was also to use the microchip in order to keep her confined in her apartment, as the microchip gave him the ability to render her unconscious at any time. She also told viewers that the microchip, which she specifically calls a very chip, allows authorities to activate certain thought patterns in her brain, as well as giving them the ability to see through her eyes, as ChipChan has often horrifyingly stated. ChipChan has made it explicitly clear that she does not try to contact the police and has no intention of doing so for fear that the corrupt police officer P will find out and have her killed. She also has expressed that she needs her livestream viewers to help her deal with P by spreading the word and contacting a man named Park Sang-man, who is apparently the company director of Samsung Card, South Korea's largest credit card company. ChipChan has a rather unkempt appearance, and her apartment is extremely disorganized. She also appears to be in very poor health, and it is evident from her extremely lethargic lifestyle that her health is suffering. Add that to the fact that she has outbreaks of skin rashes and often appears on webcam with wounds of unknown origin, which she regularly uploads pictures and videos of. She claims to have no idea where these wounds have come from, but suggests that they were related to the mind control devices inserted in her body. Since it is evident that she has been living this highly unusual and worrying way since at least 1999, viewers have often expressed concern for her mental health and general well-being. She is known to have responded to viewers via mail and comments on her blogs, but refuses to communicate via the chat functions on her streams. In each correspondence, ChipChan makes it clear that there is nothing wrong with her, and that the shadowy, corrupt police officer P is entirely to blame for her situation. Further research has revealed that ChipChan's real name is in fact Park Jae-on, and that she is a resident of Seoul, South Korea. Researchers were baffled by the fact that ChipChan is somehow able to do nothing but surf the web, live stream, and sleep all day without any obvious income stream. But one correspondent claimed to have communicated with ChipChan, asking after her financial situation. She told them that she did not have a job and was obviously unable to apply for or keep one due to her situation. However, she also told them that she was financially independent thanks to a large inheritance left to her by her parents when they died. Several theories have emerged from around the internet, speculating on exactly why ChipChan is engaging in such bizarre and disturbing behavior. But the most commonly believed theory is that ChipChan is suffering from a variety of mental illnesses. Many have pointed out that her behavior displays many symptoms of paranoia and paranoid schizophrenia. These include her paranoid delusions that almost anyone and everyone is acting in ways designed to cause her suffering. There is also the fact that she has become increasingly withdrawn from her family and friends, alienating them with accusations that they are part of P's network of informants. A common trait of paranoid schizophrenia, Chip Chan's declining health is also a common symptom of paranoid delusion, since her mental state seems to have deteriorated to the point that she avoids any kind of self-grooming or self-care. However, criticism of such a theory is rife given that, in general, paranoid schizophrenics do not enjoy being watched in the least bit, and often go into hiding or seclude themselves to alleviate their suffering. Therefore, it would be highly unusual that a sufferer of such a mental illness would go about installing webcams all over their living space or opt to stream their lives in such a detailed, consistent way. People have also suggested that Chip Chan is suffering from narcolepsy, and that this is why she has such odd sleeping patterns and why she sleeps in such odd positions. For example, Chip Chan has been known to fall asleep lying on her back with her feet elevated on a nearby office chair. This would make circulation to her feet difficult and would cause painful pins and needles, which would in all likelihood wake her up. Yet, she still sleeps for more than 12 hours at a time. Chip Chan also complains that she does not dream, which is also a symptom of narcolepsy, since the condition interferes with the REM cycle required for dreams to occur. However, this theory has been ruled out by experts who are quick to point out that people suffering from narcolepsy only tend to fall asleep for very brief periods of times, usually only minutes, while Chip Chan is able to sleep for unusually long amounts of time. As of now, it is still unclear just why Chip Chan is doing the things she does, and due to her unwillingness to seek any practical, tangible help, we may never know just what is going on inside her head. But one thing is clear. She obviously has a passionate belief in her own mistreatment at the hands of authority figures, to the point that she would allow her health and well-being to degenerate to dangerously low levels. It is entirely possible that someday soon, a user may tune into Chip Chan's stream to see her lying in one of those characteristically unusual positions. They will assume that she is sleeping, just like many have become accustomed to believing when, in fact, she has passed away, and the truth of her existence may well remain a mystery forever. The internet is the most powerful informational tool the world has ever known. Although there is an almost endless torrent of misinformation uploaded and shared on a daily basis, the World Wide Web has become a database of knowledge and wisdom so vast that it would have the librarians of Alexandria awestruck. Yet, just as much as the internet can be enlightening, it also can be baffling and mysterious. And in the darkest of online corners, there are conundrums that can be as terrifying as they can be confusing. This is the story of one of those mysteries. This is the story of Cicada 3301. On a brisk January evening back in 2012, a 34-year-old Swedish computer analyst named Joel Eriksson was engaging in an online pastime familiar to many of us: procrastination. He'd had a long, grueling workday, straining his eyes as he peered over lines and lines of coding and was looking for something a little more inconsequential, something fun and lighthearted. Instead, he found something that would send him down a rabbit hole of epic proportions. Joel was browsing 4chan forums when he happened upon a message from an anonymous poster. It was written with stark white type against a black background, accompanied by a picture of a winged insect. The message read as follows: "Hello. We are looking for highly intelligent individuals. To find them, we have devised a test. There is a message hidden in this image. Find it, and it will lead you on the road to finding us. We look forward to meeting the few that will make it all the way through. Good luck. 3301. The number 3301 was the only identifier left by the poster. There was no name, no location, no organization to give Joel an idea as to who posted the message or if it was at all legitimate. But still, Joel's interest was instantly piqued. By his own admission, he was a computer security nerd and a skilled cryptographer in his own right. He knew enough to recognize that this was a classic example of what is known as digital steganography, the careful concealment of furtive information within a digital file. Digital steganography is most often associated with image files such as JPEGs or any other pixelated image. For example, with such images, it is possible to change the color of every 50th or 100th pixel in order to retrieve or detect an entirely different image from what is considered to be randomized background noise. This is a technique more commonly used by organizations with considerably more nefarious ends, such as those in which traffic in illegal images or terrorism. Like in 2002, when intelligence officials suggested that agents of Al-Qaeda had planned the devastating September 11th attacks via the auction site eBay using encrypting messages that were secreted inside digital photographs. Although it was late at night and Joel Erickson was exhausted after a long workday, he took the time to try his hand at decoding the messages from the mysterious user known only as 3301. Yet, after only 10 minutes or so of working through some of the more basic decryption techniques he knew of, Joel had seemingly made progress. He found a vague reference to Tiberius Claudius Caesar, along with a line of apparently meaningless letters. Joel recognized this for what it was, a Caesar cipher, a method of encryption once used by Julius Caesar himself in some of his own personal correspondence. A relatively simple but ancient technique, it replaces characters by a letter a certain number of positions down the alphabet. Given that Claudius was the fourth emperor of the Roman Empire, the reference suggested that the number 4 may well be crucial to solving the puzzle. Keeping this in mind, it only took a short while longer before Joel found a web address concealed in the image's code. With a smug feeling of fulfillment, Joel clicked the link. But the web address only led him to a picture of a duck, along with a goading message that read, "Whoops, just decoys this way. Looks like you can't guess how to get the message out." But Joel was not deterred. He often found that if a puzzle seemed too routine or easy to crack, that he would lose interest fast. Yet it seemed that this particular problem was much more challenging than he had been led to believe. Joel was now hooked, and although he didn't quite realize it at the time, he was embarking on one of the internet's most enduring puzzles, an online scavenger hunt that led thousands of competing cryptographers across cyberspace to several real-world locations across the world and into previously uncharted areas of the so-called dark web. As it stands, the search for the truth behind Cicada 3301 has required an intimate familiarity with the occult, advanced number theory, cyberpunk literature, Mayan numerology, and even classical music. The epic puzzle has also included a mysterious, tuneless guitar ditty, a few lines from a poem, and most intriguingly, an enigmatic female known as Wind, who may or may not exist in real life. There was also an apparent clue left on a lamppost in the Hawaiian Islands, which gave those who wished to decipher the puzzle a crucial clue as to where the creators originated. There are many variables, but only one certainty, that no one really knows what Cicada 3301 is all about, or who is actually behind it. Various rumors tell of a secret society who use the puzzle to search for new members, but it is just as likely that it is a challenge laid out by some quasi-military body or government intelligence agency, such as the CIA or Britain's MI5. For many, the Cicada puzzle is merely a piece of cerebral, albeit mysterious entertainment, nothing more than a kind of Sudoku puzzle for the more intellectually curious. But for other seekers, Cicada has become a dangerous obsession. More than 8 years after he discovered the puzzle, Joel Erickson is still trying to discern exactly what the whole thing means to him. Although one thing is clear to him, that's a battle of minds, a challenge so alluring that he finds it impossible to resist. Let's rewind for a moment to the night of January 5th, 2012, the night Joel read the decoy message which featured the image of the duck. Interpreting the duck's derision as an actual clue unto itself, Erickson began to run the image through a decryption program known as Outguessed. That's when he made yet another breakthrough, discovering an additional concealed message, this one linking to another thread on the massively popular social media site Reddit. It was there that encrypted lines from a novel were being posted once every couple of hours. But Joel also found a series of unusual symbols, each comprising of several lines and dots. He copied and pasted them into a Google search bar, and the results showed that they were in fact Mayan numbers that comprised yet another cipher. Up until that point, none of the puzzles had required any truly advanced decryption expertise, which gave Joel the idea that this was nothing more than the work of a single anonymous trickster playing an elaborate prank on the online communities he frequented. But the Mayan numerals changed everything for him, and led him to believe that the truth behind Cicada ran far deeper and was far more shadowy than he had first thought. The puzzles themselves had begun to mutate into several different directions, including hexadecimal characters, reverse engineering, and prime numbers. Pictures of the winged cicada, reminiscent of the Death's Head moth imagery in Thomas Harris's The Silence of the Lambs, had become a common theme. Joel believed that there could be no coincidence there, and began conducting his own research into the biology of the insect itself. He soon discovered that cicadas only emerged over a particular number of years, either 13 or 17, to avoid synchronizing with the life cycles of their natural predators. Being familiar with advanced mathematics, Joel instantly recognized the significance of this. They were prime numbers. Everything was beginning to come together. Joel poured himself into researching the other cryptic references posted on Reddit, discovering that some of the literary quotes were from a poem about King Arthur taken from the Mabinogion, a collection of pre-Christian medieval Welsh manuscripts, as well as a poem by cyberpunk writer William Gibson called Agrippa, a Book of the Dead. Written in 1992, the poem was infamous for the fact that it was only published on a series of 3.5-inch floppy disks that were programmed to erase themselves after being read only once. As word of Cicada 3301 spread online, thousands of amateur sleuths joined the hunt for clues. A veritable army of users from the 4chan forums, the place the first cicada message is thought to have appeared, pulled their collective intelligence into an attempt to crack the puzzle. And thanks to their mammoth efforts, a new message was discovered after studying the references taken from the Mabinogion. "Call us," it read, "at telephone number 214-390-9608. By the time the phone number was posted online, Joel Erickson had become so obsessed with the cicada puzzle that he had actually taken time off from his job to work on the puzzle full-time. At present, the number is disconnected, but we know that the line was based in the state of Texas, and that those that called it were met by an answering machine message in which a robotic voice told seekers to find the prime numbers hidden in the original cicada image. They did so, and by multiplying them together, found a new prime and a new website, 845-145-127.com. A countdown clock and a huge picture of a winged cicada confirmed that they were indeed on the correct course. Joel found the scope and scale of the puzzle simply breathtaking, but unbelievably, the puzzle was about to prove even more thrilling for those who attempted to solve it. At noon, Eastern Standard Time on January 9th, 2012, the countdown clock on the mysterious website reached 0. It was then that 14 GPS coordinates from around the world were revealed. These referenced real-world locations in Poland, France, South Korea, as well as several places around the United States. Sat in his Swedish bedroom, Erickson pored over the data, waiting patiently as seekers around the globe went to investigate the coordinates in their respective nations. Slowly but surely, reports came in of what they had found at each location. There had been a coordinated effort around the globe to attach posters to lampposts and walls. It was now blindly obvious that the cicada phenomenon was not merely the work of one ingenious, determined individual. There was a network of people behind this thing operating from the shadows. Each poster bore the same cicada image that had been found on the websites along with a QR code. Those are those small black and white barcode-style things that smartphone cameras can scan, taking the user to a specific website or downloadable application. Joel Erickson found the discovery absolutely thrilling, his suspicions of some kind of underground organization being suddenly confirmed by people all over the world. But who exactly these people were or who they were working for was unnervingly clear. Ever since the first Cicada 3301 image first appeared, theories abound as to whom exactly was responsible. Many believe that Cicada may well be nothing more than an elaborate PR stunt, an unusual, intricate, alternate reality game designed by some multinational company whose endgame merely was to promote some new product. And there was a precedent for this. In 2004, during the promotional effort for the video game Halo 2, Microsoft had coordinated what became known as the I Love Bees campaign. They used random payphones around the world to broadcast various episodes of a self-produced radio drama in the style of Orson Welles' War of the Worlds. The campaign was well publicized and helped push millions of units for the company, so it is understandable that the cynics among the Cicada crowd chose to believe that the rabbit hole would come to a commercial dead end. However, there were certain details surrounding the Cicada puzzle which separated it from your average guerrilla advertising campaign. For example, it became obvious that some of those behind the puzzle itself were actively working to frustrate the efforts of those involved. You remember the woman known as Wind mentioned earlier? She claimed to be a cryptographer from Michigan who was actively engaged in solving the Cicada puzzle, but over time, many noticed that she was apparently spreading misinformation in an apparent effort to throw people off the scent. Another detail is considerably more terrifying. A warning was posted by an anonymous user on the website Payspin, who claimed to be an ex-Cicada member and military officer who was recruited to the organization by one of his superior officers. The warning stated that the Cicada movement purported to be a progressive scientific organization, but was in fact a cabal of satanic worship, who practiced malevolent magical practices in order to secure vast personal power and wealth. Their ranks included powerful politicians, members of the armed forces, and leading academics who wished to manipulate the course of history in their own wicked vision. Yet there were also persistent rumors that Cicada was a recruitment drive by the CIA, MI6, or America's National Security Agency as part of a search for highly talented code breakers. And again, there would be a well-documented precedent for this because in 2010, the United States Air Force Cyber Command, the Americans' premier hacking defense force, secretly embedded a complex hexadecimal code in their new logo. Cyber Command Chief Lieutenant General Keith Alexander then challenged the world's code-breaking community to crack it. Yet it took the internet a mere 3 hours to crack the code, and was a major embarrassment for the organization. And in September of 2013, Great Britain's GCHQ launched the Can You Find It program, which consisted of a series of cryptic codes designed to find the next generation of top-tier British cryptographers. Jane Jones, GCHQ's head of resourcing, stated that despite it being a puzzle designed to capture the imaginations of younger people, it was also a serious test, the rewards of which would be highly paid jobs that were vital to protecting the UK's national security interests. This kind of viral campaign had been a tried and tested method of recruitment and has been for many years. During World War II, the British government's top-secret government code and cipher school used crossword puzzles printed in the Daily Telegraph newspaper to identify potential candidates to break the Nazi Enigma machine. But many professional cryptographers were skeptical of the theories that the CIA or NSA were responsible for the Cicada puzzle. Both organizations are extremely careful with security, and experts believe that since the puzzle originated on what is essentially an anarchic internet forum, it was highly unlikely that the CIA and their ilk would want to attract those with a diminished respect for authority, let alone recruit them. But that leaves us with the possibility that certain private organizations, multinational corporations and the like, were behind the campaign in order to recruit those with a talent for what is known as black hat hacking. The proliferation of wireless devices, mobile telephones, e-commerce websites like Amazon, and chip and pin machines means the demand for cryptologists has never been higher. But there is one more group that we have yet to mention, who would certainly have the need to go fishing for talented hackers and codebreakers, the hacker group known as Anonymous. It is worth mentioning that the previously mentioned coordinates released by the Cicada Countdown website were all places that are home to some of the most talented hackers and cybersecurity experts in the world. When the QR codes left on the lampposts were decoded, a hidden message pointed people towards a Tor address. Tor, short for the Onion Router, is an obscure routing network that allows anonymous access to the so-called dark web, a huge shadowy section of the internet that cannot be accessed by run-of-the-mill search engines such as Google or Bing. The dark web is thought to be 5,000 times larger than the regular internet. It's in these recesses where you'll find human trafficking rings, black market drug markets, and terrorist networks. It's here where the cicada rabbit hole came to a dead end. It seems like this particular dark web page was coded to only give access to a limited number of visitors, as, after a while, it closed down, replaced with the following message: "We want the best, not the followers." Those that access the website first receive personal emails which apparently ask for their complete secrecy in participating in private code-breaking trials. This has never been completely confirmed, but what we do know for certain is that a few weeks later, a new message from Cicada was posted on Reddit reading as follows: "Hello. We have now found the individuals we sought. Thus our month-long journey ends, for now." To the disappointment of thousands of fascinated seekers, the journey was over, and all hope of finding out the truth was lost. However, on January 4th of 2013, almost a year to the day since the original puzzle picture was posted on 4chan, a brand new image appeared. A new message in the same white text read, "Hello again. Our search for intelligent individuals now continues." Close study of the image would reveal yet another poem, this one from the book Liber Alveo Legis, a religious doctrine written by the infamous occultist and magician Aleister Crowley. This led to a downloadable file containing thousands of prime numbers along with an MP3 file, a song called The Instar Emergence by an artist known only as 3301, which begins with the sound of chirping cicadas. Detailed analysis of the song brought seekers to a bizarrely named Twitter account which pumped out random numbers, which in turn produced a gematria, an ancient Hebrew code table, but this time based on Anglo-Saxon runes. This led the solvers back into the dark web, where they found 7 new physical locations, from Texas to Japan and Russia, with yet more QR codes printed on insect-beating posters. The cycle had begun again. But still, we are no closer to knowing the source or fundamental purpose of Cicada 3301. But therein lies the terrifying scope and scale of the mystery, that it is almost impossible to know just who is behind it, and even more difficult to discern why. Whether or not it is the work of some shadowy cult-like organization or something less nefarious, we might never know. But it is haunting to realize that there are dark curtains out there that most of us will never, ever get to look behind, with figures working away in dark basements and high-rise tower blocks on a mystery that may never, ever be solved. In June of 2015, Swedish tech blog GadgetZZ.com received a package at their company offices. It was an envelope with no return address, originating from the city of Warsaw in Poland, and was addressed only to Johnny K., referring to John Eric Krabichler, the founding editor of the company. Inside was a single DVD disc labeled with a long, seemingly meaningless string of letters and numbers. A company employee believed that was some kind of product key for a game or piece of software that the sender wished them to review. But when they put the DVD into their computer, all they found was a single video file. Expecting it to be some kind of disguised malware, the employee ran a quick antivirus scan on it to ensure it was safe to access. When they discovered it was clean, they opened up the file and began to watch. What they saw sent shivers down their spines. The black and white video was no longer than 2 minutes in length. At first, it showed only a shadowy figure standing before 2 open windows set into the crumbling walls of an abandoned building. A dark, creepy-looking forest was visible through a hole in one of the walls behind him, skeletal, gnarled trees making for a deeply unnerving backdrop. Suddenly, the figure steps out from the shadows, a dim light revealing a person dressed in a 14th century plague doctor's costume. The kind with a goggled mask with a mouthpiece resembling a bird's beak, along with a long, dark, long-sleeved hooded cloak. The video was soundtracked by loud, jarring buzzing noises as the plague doctor held up a single hand, a flashing light blinking out from his black-gloved palm. Then, as abruptly as it began, it suddenly ended, bearing no credits or claims of authorship. All who watched the video found it was disturbing as it was fascinating, but one particular company employee who watched it began to notice a series of codes and letters hidden all around the video. After a brief attempt to find the meaning behind such a mysterious video, he gave up and instead deferred to the internet, posting the video to a blog he ran, along with the images of the envelope the disc came in, as well as the disc itself. Soon, a Reddit user who had seen the post on the employee's blog found other coded messages hidden within the video. An encoded encryption on the DVD's menu was found to read 11BX1371, which has since been universally used as the title for the video. Others who analyzed the video slowed down the isolated audio track, told of being able to hear something that sounded like a voice saying, "I would love to kill you," being repeated over and over. An additional Reddit user worked on creating a spectrogram of the sound, a spectrogram being a visual representation of the spectrum of frequencies of a signal as it varies with time. He soon discovered a variety of both text messages and images concealed within the sound waves. These included a message in plain text stating, "You are already dead," but many others were encrypted and he was without the cryptology skills to decipher them. However, he was able to access some of the images concealed in the audio track. These images were incredibly disturbing. One depicted a woman tied to a tree who was being tortured and mutilated by an undiscernible figure wearing a dark mask. Another image depicted a visual still from the 2010 horror film The Bunny Game, in which a drug-addicted woman of the night named Bunny propositions a truck driver. He kidnaps her and subjects her to extreme torture, inflicting brutal, humiliating, and extreme forms of physical abuse. Additional images included stills from a German film called Slasher, a movie about a picnicking couple being murdered in a forest by a disfigured man, as well as an image of one of the Boston Strangler's female victims. This raised initial concerns that whoever had made the video was a serial killer, and that this was his way of leaving a kind of breadcrumb trail that might lead to their eventual capture. This was evidenced by the fact that a triangle and square message near the end of the video was found to read, "Ad oppognere homine," Latin text which translated means to attack or target men. Another series of plain text messages led to even more disturbing theories surrounding the origin and purpose of the video. One read, "The infected eagle will spread his disease. We are the antivirus, will protect the world body," along with another which read, "Strike an arrow through the heart of the eagle." Another sequence of 20 pairs of two-digit characters was found to be the latitude and longitude of the White House, the seat of American power in Washington, D.C. This was accompanied by Morse code, which read, "Red lips like 10th." When it was decoded, one extremely disturbing cryptographer noted that this could possibly be an intended anagram for the words, "Kill the President." The same user reported that a cipher in the video could be decoded to reveal the message, "Stand and fight with us, take down the beast, kill his disease or fall with the rest." The year, 1371, is also suggested was one in which the Black Death was ravaging Europe. This, coupled with the imagery of the plague doctor in the video, led other decoders to interpret the video's threats as related to bioterrorism. Early investigations soon found that John Eric Krobichler was not the person to make the video public. In May of 2015, a YouTube account with the username AETBX had posted it to YouTube, and was the only video the account had ever posted. There it had been identified and described in binary code with a string of zeros and ones, as other users began commenting on it. AETBX returned to ask why there was suddenly so much interest in his 5-month-old posting. Some commenters speculated that he had actually created it himself, but the user vigorously denied that it was his creation. But in late November, after the intense rumors and initial speculation about the video, its creator and purpose had died down. A Twitter account was opened under the name Parker Warner Wright. He claimed to be a U.S. citizen who lives in Poland and that the videos were meant as an art project. After finishing the video in May 2015, he had left 3 copies, 2 on discs in a subway and park in Poland, and the last one posted to 4chan. While the identity of the video creator remained unknown, the location at which it was filmed had been identified. A Polish internet user who was following the story went to the former Zofiówka sanatorium near Otwock, a short distance south of Warsaw. One of the rooms there had the same kind of forest nearby, along with the same graffiti seen in the video. The latter were not present in a photo of the room taken in November 2013, suggesting the video was made between then and April of 2015. Given that Parker Wright was living in Poland at the time, this makes him one of the more likely claimants to being the video's creator. But despite him being the most likely person to have posted it, Parker Wright was not the only person on the internet actively claiming the same thing at the time, and throughout the last months of the year the video was posted, others posted their own videos in an attempt to authenticate themselves as the video's true creator. So it is frankly impossible to determine whether or not it was simply an attempt to keep him to promote his wider work through fraudulently claiming to have made the video himself. We may never know who truly posted the video known as 11BX1371, or what their true intentions or motives were, but I just hope that they're not still out there, plotting their strike against humanity that in all likelihood may well come in the form of a deadly, infectious disease. Back in 2002, a Scottish man named Gary McKinnon was living and working in London as a systems administrator for a large software company. He was a quiet man and suffered from several depressive illnesses, including Asperger's syndrome. But despite this, Gary was very, very good at his job and proved to be a valuable asset to his employees. Yet Gary McKinnon was busy working on other things too, things that led to a knock on his door on the 19th of March 2002. It was the police. Gary was arrested and interviewed under caution, and it was after this interview that his computer was seized by the British authorities. He was interviewed again on the 8th of August, only this time by the United Kingdom's National High-Tech Crimes Unit. The charges against Gary McKinnon were massive. He has been accused of hacking into almost 100 United States military and NASA workers over a 13-month period between February of 2001 and the time of his arrest. By using a simple dial-up connection at the house of his girlfriend's aunt in London and using the name hacker pseudonym Solo, Gary shut down the United States Army's Military District of Washington network of 2,000 computers for more than 24 hours. However, what really drew the ire of the U.S. military was that in the aftermath of the September 11th attacks in New York City, McKinnon erased weapons logs at the Earl Naval Weapons Station in New Jersey, rendering hundreds of U.S. military computers inoperable. This effectively paralyzed munitions supply deliveries for the U.S. Navy's Atlantic Fleet, and it was said to have caused almost $1 million in damages. McKinnon was also accused of copying top-secret data, account files, and passwords onto his own computer over in London. McKinnon had admitted that he obtained unauthorized access to computer systems in the United States, but has since stated that his reason for doing so are not what the U.S. authorities made them to be. After a meeting at the Washington Press Club on the 9th of May 2001, he had told the gathering of journalists that his motivation for hacking into the military's computer systems was to find and expose evidence of extraterrestrial visitation, anti-gravity technology, and the suppression of what is known as free energy. The free energy theory is the idea that technologically viable, pollution-free, no-cost energy sources are being suppressed by government, corporations, or advocacy groups. Devices allegedly suppressed include perpetual motion machines, cold fusion generators, Torah space generators, reverse-engineered extraterrestrial technology, and other low-cost energy sources, the application of which could change human civilization as we know it. McKinnon believed the fact that the United States had come down so heavily on him seeking his extradition was evidence enough that such technology existed and was being kept secret to keep humanity in a permanent state of essentially being wage slaves. If extradited to the U.S. and charged, McKinnon would have faced up to 70 years in jail and could have possibly been sent to Guantanamo Bay to live out his sentence. In an interview televised on the BBC's Click program, McKinnon stated that he believed wholeheartedly in a group known as the Disclosure Project. He told an interview that they were made up of some extremely credible, high-profile individuals who all confirmed that UFO technology had been obtained and put to use by secretive divisions of the U.S. military. He referred to the Roswell incident of 1947, asserting that the United States had indeed acquired and reverse-engineered alien technology and used it to develop anti-gravity technology along with devices that produced safe, clean, and infinite amounts of raw energy. McKinnon also stated that he had taken the advice of a NASA photographic expert and investigated the databanks of the Johnson Space Center's Building 8. There he had found evidence that images were being regularly cleansed of evidence which proved the existence of an alien spacecraft. There were multiple copies of some photographs, some of which showed bizarrely shaped aircrafts and other identical photos in which such aircraft had been scrubbed from the images. He said he was sure that such aircraft was definitely nothing that humanity were capable of producing, even using the most advanced technology, claiming to have seen bizarre, cigar-shaped crafts floating above the northern hemisphere. The only reason he did not use screen capture programs to record these images was because he claimed to be so awestruck with what he was seeing that he simply forgot to do so. By the time he thought to do so, his invasive presence on their servers had been detected, and he was forced to sever his connection to the databanks. In October of 2012, acting British Home Secretary Theresa May announced to Parliament that McKinnon's extradition to the U.S. had been blocked, saying that the Director of Public Prosecutions would determine whether McKinnon should face the trial before a British court. Then just a few months later, then Director of Public Prosecutions and current Labour Party leader Sir Keir Starmer announced that McKinnon would not be prosecuted in the United Kingdom because of the difficulties involved in bringing a case against him when all of the relevant evidence was in the United States. Essentially, Gary McKinnon was off the hook. But the question remains, was McKinnon telling the truth about what he'd seen whilst hacking into top-secret U.S. government computer files, or was it all a cover for the very real crimes of his cyber attacks on the American military? Regardless, statements by McKinnon sound alarmingly specific and detailed, and it would take an extremely imaginative fantasist to have come up with such stories. Not to mention that the extremely harsh punishment sought out by the United States justice system only lends weight to the idea that he most definitely saw things that they didn't want any other living soul to see. We may never know the truth of the matter, and we can only continue to speculate at the wider conspiracy at work. Hey friends, thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe and click that notification bell to be alerted of all future narrations. And if you got a story, be sure to submit them to my subreddit, r.let'sreadofficial, and give and receive feedback from the community, and maybe even hear your story featured on the next video. And join my Discord to interact with me and other listeners directly. And if you want to support me even more, grab early access to all future narrations for just $1 a month on Patreon, and maybe even pick up some Let's Read merch on Spreadshirt. And check out the Let's Read podcast, where you can hear all these stories in long compilation form and save huge on data on your phone, located anywhere you listen to podcasts. Links in the bio. Thanks so much, friends. And remember to butter your socks or get the bonk.